Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and then we hear about these weird stories about people who have jobs and don't perform their jobs very well. And if you do that in the private sector, of course, you get fired. But if it's in the public sector, occasionally you hear about people who get away with stuff, not showing up for work and so on. And the question always happens, to be asked, what do you do when somebody who has a government job doesn't show up? And so this is the crazy one that Bill sent me. And thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate you sending me the note along with the story. Suffolk County police officer arrested after he's accused of failing to respond to calls. WLNY, CBS out of New York, published the story. And they're saying the officer didn't respond to calls. Now, I've heard stories about 911 operators not taking people seriously and hanging up on them, for instance. But here's a police officer who didn't respond to calls. You might say, well, maybe he was busy. Maybe he got two calls at once. Maybe there's a reason that he couldn't attend to the calls immediately. Is that really that bad? Oh, it gets worse. A Suffolk County police officer has been arrested. Again, not fired, not disciplined. Arrested for failing to respond to calls and filing fake reports. That's where this scheme falls apart, my friends. The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office says that on 6 different occasions in 2020, an officer from Lake Grove was dispatched to incidents but didn't respond at all. He later submitted false reports that say that he had responded and described what he did once he got there and so on. So, as you might guess, you've heard of the phrase police report. When the police attend to a situation and they go back to the station, they often file a report. And so the report is often documenting a legal situation. So, give you an example, there's a car accident, okay? 2 cars collide with each other in an intersection. The police show up. They check to see if the drivers are okay, if they need medical attention. They then try to figure out what happened. They clear the intersection. They have the cars towed if necessary. And they create a traffic incident report, or whatever they call it in that jurisdiction. But it's a police report. And so you've often heard the phrase, police report in response to you were in a car accident, your insurance company wants a copy of the police report. Police report indicates who was there, officer-wise, what they saw, what they found, what they did, and it's all filed in a report. And I've been involved, unfortunately, in traffic incidents where I had an officer say, here's my card, here's an incident report number, and within 24 hours or 48, whatever it is, you can get a copy of this report if you need it. It's a public document. So the allegation is that on at least 6 occasions in 2020, the officer was dispatched to incidents but did not respond. Despite that, he then submitted police reports saying he had responded and presumably describing what he did when he got there, and so on. The incidents that he failed to respond to included 3 separate requests for emergency response. So 3 of them were emergencies. So they call the officer and say, quick, there's an emergency, go to it. He doesn't go there, but he still files reports saying he did, according to the allegations. One of those incidents involved a 90-year-old woman who was having some kind of medical emergency, and he never responded, but he filed a report saying that he did. Now, who are you going to believe? The 90-year-old victim here, or a well-written police report? The man has been with the Suffolk County Police Department since September of 2016, and he has also been suspended without pay. So, he's been suspended without pay, and he has been arrested. And this is the thing, we've talked about this before, that if you are a government entity, whether it's a police department or the Department of Transportation, and the law that says that you have the right to exist, the enabling legislation that creates you, you can find someplace in a constitution or a statute or legislation somewhere that says that, there shall be a police department. The police department shall do the following things, or Department of Transportation shall do the following things. And if part of your duties, your official duties, are to file written reports, the moment you file a fake report or a false report, you are derelicting your duties. Now, you're in dereliction of your duties. And although I like derelicting also. So the moment you do that, it becomes a crime. It becomes a crime. And so ironically, you've got the police arresting a police officer. And they're arresting him for not responding to emergency calls, but filing false police reports afterwards indicating that he did. So he's 34 years old. He's facing multiple charges, including falsifying business records and official misconduct. So presumably, there's also a law on the books, and I assume that police officers everywhere are sworn in. I've seen photographs in the back of my mind, I can imagine this, of police officers who've gotten through the police academy, just like in the movies. And at the end of that, they get sworn in. And they're given a badge, and you are now officially a police officer in this jurisdiction. You just got sworn in. And you're sworn to, among other things, uphold the Constitution and to do the duties of a police officer. And so when someone tells you, presumably a supervisor or somebody gives the order and says, you need to go here and do this, respond to this call, if you don't go, you are in dereliction of your duty. Now, is it possible that somebody might not make it to a call and have a good excuse? I'm racing to a call in my squad car, and some idiot runs a red light and T-bones me as I go through an intersection and destroys my cruiser, and I don't make it to the crime scene. Am I going to get arrested for dereliction of duty? No, of course not. I have a perfectly valid excuse as to why I didn't make it to that crime scene. I was trying. My intent was good. I had every intention of going. I was even trying to get there, and fate stopped me from getting there. But the moment the guy chooses to not go, then he's in dereliction of duty. Then, when he files the false police report, that, of course, is falsifying a business record, which apparently is also illegal in New York, especially when it's being done by a government official. Better, and this is something you need to understand, and this is a slight overlap with what I just told you, but there's a different layer here. And one of the things I'm sure you know is to convict somebody of a crime, you often have to show what their mindset was. That's why there's a distinction between me racing to the scene and getting T-boned and not showing up versus some guy who just doesn't show up. Because our intent is different. I have good intent when I was in a car accident, but the guy who doesn't show up has bad intent. How do we know he has bad intent? Because he filed a false police report to cover up his tracks. And if he hadn't filed the false reports, but had just simply not shown up, they can make the argument that he's in dereliction of duty, but it's a harder argument to make. Now, if he does it 6 times, it becomes a little easier each time he does that. But the false police report, it's kind of like when they say the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So the crime is the guy's not responding to calls, apparently as a pattern, as a habit, and he's covering it up with the false reports. The other thing I've got to say here, and this I know is more of a personal thought on my part, but I have to wonder about somebody who has a job, and we've all heard of people who've had jobs where they say, I'm not even sure what I'm doing at work anymore. I don't even know why am I there, And there are sometimes redundancies in some big organizations where some guy can get himself or gal can get herself into a corner office, and they're like, what does that person do in there? Like, what do they even do? Who knows? The idea that you've got a job where you're given tasks and you simply don't do the task and file a fake report to say you did really makes you wonder what you think you're doing for a living. Because most people would say, and again, I have to caution you on this, because a lot of people say that I'm anti-cop because I often talk about bad police officers. And no, it's just because I'm a lawyer and I do a lot of videos about the law. And so police officers are often involved in legal issues. And so I am actually often attacked for being pro-cop because I often say that in my mind, not all cops are bad. There's bad cops and there's good cops. And I will give a cop the benefit of the doubt until I see them do something bad, in which case they become a bad cop. So this guy here, okay, he has a job and he gets up in the morning and apparently thinks to himself, at least with his mindset, that what I do at work is so unimportant and irrelevant that I don't need to do it. I'll get paid, I'll wear the uniform, I'll sit in the car, but when I get calls, I won't go on them because they don't matter. They don't matter. And they matter so little that I can file a fake report and it's just as good as if I'd gone and filed a real report. And that's what really, when I look at this story, I go, can you imagine if you actually, in your mind, reduced your job to the point where I don't have to do anything except file fake reports? How unimportant is my job? Now, if you're doing that at a huge corporation, or if you're in a movie that's a comedy and you do that, that's fine. There's some great comedies out there about people in corporate settings who don't work or fake the work or whatever. George Costanza on the Penske file, right? That's comedy. In real life, if you're a police officer and you go to work and you get emergency calls, you go on them and come back and report. And the fact that you go, I don't need to go on that call. I don't need to file a real report. That's a real crazy situation. If it happened once, you'd wonder. 3 times? Whoa. 6 times in 1 year. So the man has been arrested. Suffolk County police officer arrested, accused of failing to respond to calls and then filing fake police reports afterwards. WLNY ran it. And Bill sent it again. Thanks a lot, Bill. I appreciate the note. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Perfection is achieved, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away.